Right, welcome back, everybody, on the National Board meeting on June 18th. It is now 12:24 as we return out of closed session. Out of closed session, will report that the board was able to hear about a recent legal claim or demand, and we feel it's without basis, and yet we're seeking advice and trying to resolve it with the help of some legal services. So that's our report out of closed session. Our agenda continues, but I want to propose a little bit of a order change, if no one will object. I'll describe it. Item 5, which is informational. It's the reports from Dr. Bean and or Delano Jones. I'd like to put that at the back end of the agenda so that we could get to all of our consent items and then also our action items. Any thoughts on that? Any objections to moving item 5, Roman numeral 5, to the back end? I'll ask, well, I'll make a motion that we do that then. Could I invite a second? A second. Oh, great. And that's a perfect segue. That's David's son, and both he and Felipe Delgado joined us in person during our last session. And so I'll just note that for Mary Beth in the notes too. And so we'll go roll call from right to left. Then David. Yep. And Doug, you say yes. Brett. Aye. Molly.
Yes.
And Felipe.
Yes.
Great. Our agenda is adjusted accordingly. We begin though coming out then of closed session with an opportunity for any public comments. That's item number 4. Mary Beth, any submissions in writing or in person? Wonderful.
I'm not sure if they can hear you online because it kind of seems soft. So can we?
Get it closer.
There we go.
I'll do that. We'll each just speak straight in. I'm going to start over. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Just turn up your volume as you replay it. That moves us then to our consent agenda items. These can be consented to in one motion, I believe. Is that correct, Dr. Bean?
Yes.
Let me review them just so everybody knows. I had opportunity to see all the documents that correspond with them. I hope you did as well. The first will be the adoption of our May 21st minutes. Second will be our renewal of Fresh Start contract for the coming school year. Third is a renewal of a North Compass consulting contract. Fourth is approval of a gift agreement that was presented to us before, as we heard about the K Family Foundation grant for $250,000. And then E, or the fifth, is the board approving Amendment 1 to the Charter Facilities Agreement that exists between us and Irvine Unified School District. I'll pause. Sometimes we do discussion after a motion, but I like doing discussion sometimes just before we even do a motion. On those 5 items, any discussion that rises for anybody, in particular too, any changes to the minutes, if you had a chance to review those? Okay, these are consent items. We'll have more discussion on the new items. I'll ask for a motion then to approve all the consent agenda items together.
I motion we approve the consent.
Thank you, Felipe. A second? Since Molly's second, we'll start on that side and go down the line. Felipe, I vote.
Yes.
And Molly.
Yes.
And Brett. Aye. And Doug. As a yes. And David. Yep. I called on my own name and then waited to answer. I don't know what I was thinking. Try doing this job sometime. You see how difficult it is. That moves us to item 7, discussion items. Once again, at each of these, there's opportunity for public comment. And Mary Beth, just chime in if there is one for us. I'm sure she will. She watches online as well. The first discussion item is the board will discuss facility and fundraising with Grow Schools, in particular Dylan Smith. I want to invite in a moment Dr. Bean, of course, to come with us. There's also guests as well joining us today in the board meeting. Let me give a minute to first the fundraising with Grow Schools. Dr. Bean, give us a little background on this discussion and we'll invite others into it.
Okay, so we're inviting Dylan. He had an opportunity, or someone from his company had an opportunity to speak with you last time. So this is just a continuing conversation around whether we use Grow Schools to help us locate facility and funding for the next school year and beyond. Keep in mind our conversation that you had with Dr. Wesley this morning about timeline for new charter, countywide charter. So, Dylan, are you on? Okay, I just called him, so he should be on soon. Here he comes.
There he is.
All right, Dylan, we just introduced you, so you have the floor.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for making the time for me this afternoon, everybody. I am Dylan Smith. So the introduction there is I'm the account manager that's been working with IIA at Grow Schools for the last year and a half or so. So I know you've probably all gotten emails and things from me and bugging you for certain items as we've worked through the kind of financing side of things. So appreciate making the time there. Sorry, my colleague is hopping on as well. There he comes. It's Kurt Nilsson. Our president is joining me. And I know Kurt, I think, was on the board meeting with y'all a couple of months back. So he's back. Join us again.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Awesome. And let me just ask, what are my screen sharing abilities here? Because I want to pull up the deck that was shared with everybody the other day.
I think Mary Beth can approve you as a presenter, or try doing screen share.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and.
Let me, there you go, go ahead.
Okay.
How's the acceptance going on the new name? Are people still saying Charter Schools Capital? Everybody moved to Grow Schools now.
The transition's gone pretty well. It was luckily we launched right before, was it CSDC conference there, and so we got it out to the especially the California market there pretty quick and easy. So it's gone well. Come on. All right. There we go. All right. Is everybody seeing the full deck there?
We do.
Right. Perfect. So today we're going to walk through sort of the Grow Schools model for helping you to get into your forever home. Talk through kind of what that looks like. The conversations that we've had previously to get us to this point, to make sure we're all still on the same page of what the path looks like, timing looks like, the school's overall desire and what that looks like, and make sure we're ready to go. And we'll finish up kind of with those next steps of how to move forward from there. So does that sound good?
Yes, please.
All right. All right, so Grow Schools, we have our vision is to make sure that all kids have access to a nourishing school environment where they can flourish. This is something that we believe we have in common with the charter school movement, and ultimately, what we try to do is create the best financial position that we can for a school, so you can create the best educational situation you can for your students. And we do that through a number of different ways, but we have that shared mission with those schools to help you get where you're going. And what that looks like in partnership with charter schools is for school leaders getting you the means, the money, the resources, know how to create those thriving schools. And certainly that seems to be the case for Irvine at this point, with the amount of demand that you have for students to come into the school. And the three ways that we do that, obviously you're familiar with the Money to Run Your School program, is one that we've been working with together for a while. The Money to Buy Your School program that we're talking through today, and then our Kids to Fill program, which is enrollment marketing to make sure that school classrooms are full for charter schools. And at Grow Schools, we have a whole team that works with you throughout the whole process. So this is a few of us. Kurt obviously is on the call today. Austin, your financial analyst, has been working with you since we started doing the financing side of things. And then Maddie is our vice president of acquisitions. So she's someone who would get involved kind of later on down the road as we're looking for a new facility for a school. But the expertise is all here in-house. And we're the ones who are driving the process forward for Irvine to ultimately get into that forever home. All right, so how do we do that? And what does our program really look like? So we take a long-term view of our partnership with charter schools. There's a lot of different other organizations out there that help schools to get into buildings that are short-term. They're developers, they're, you know, recycling capital. They're trying to move through the process quickly. Grow Schools wants to be a long-term partner with those schools. So what we do is we purchase a school facility and then we lease that school facility back to Irvine. Often for reduced monthly rent versus other options that are out there. So we guide you through the buying process. We guide you through the improvement, through the facility improvement process. Because typically, in this type of case, when we're looking for a new facility to get a group into, it's usually going to require some type of tenant improvement, some type of construction aspect. And so we have that expertise in-house as well to guide a school through that. So we take care of all of those details so you can focus on what's most important, what you got into this world to do, and that's focus on your school and focus on your students. Irvine also has a lot of growth planned. I know you had shared or I think Brett had shared the multi-year projections, and you're looking at trying to get to 650 students by the fall of 2026, I believe. So, you know, with this, we want to plan for that growth. We want to pay attention to what that looks like. So everything is clear from the beginning. You know what rent terms look like once you're in that facility. So that you can plan for that expansion and growth. There are escalators on our leases, but again, that's all planned out. It's fixed. You know what that looks like, so you can plan accordingly and focus on putting those funds towards improving and growing your programs, growing that Mandarin program or other ones that you have planned. We have a team of professionals that we design and the construction of for the school and all of its improvements. We drive the entitlement and permitting process. This is often one of the kind of hairiest parts of the process is that the permitting, to make sure that everything that we're doing is getting it ready, getting these buildings ready to be schools, and keeping that construction project on track. And we manage that construction process on time and on budget to make sure that it goes forward and is affordable for the school throughout the life of the project. There's also a path to ownership as part of our model, and we'll touch on this here in just a few minutes, kind of what that looks like. But this is through our partner, Wonderful Foundations, that we'll talk a little bit more about. But the rent payments that the school pays are part of that path to ownership. There's also access to free funds for a school. There are donation funds, capital expenditure funds that you'll have access to as part of that model. And then again, that support for expansion. Once you're into a facility, if you want to continue to grow, continue to add on to that facility, those options are still there. So you're not fixed, you're not set in that one kind of four walls. We can grow within that as you grow your enrollment, and that plan changes and grows with you. All right, so I want to reflect back a little bit here on the conversations that we've had so far and make sure that those are still accurate. And then I'll touch more on that Wonderful Foundations partnership and what that path to ownership really looks like. Talk about the sustained focus you have for your students, and then we'll finish with those next steps. And again, as questions come up, if there are questions throughout this, I'll kind of pause a few times throughout this section. It's a little thicker, and we just want to make sure we get all those answered today. So in conversations so far that we've had with Dr. Bean, I got to meet with Brett and Felipe and Mary Beth, kind of within that facility group that we have within the board. We talked through some of this, but I want to make sure that it's still correct because it's been a couple months now. So Irvine is a Mandarin immersion school that's soon to be a K-8 school and has been growing annually kind of since they opened up in 2019. And right now you're projecting for about 475 students in the fall, and that renewal for your charters coming in 2026. So with those 475 students, you're likely maxed out in your current facility. So is that still correct, that piece?
Right.
Okay, Perfect. And so for the school, I know we've had the conversation. I've been working with Delano, with North Compass for a long time, and so heard a lot about some difficulties that happened at the beginning, some drops in enrollments, some leadership changes, but it sounds like things are really coming up for the school. The school is growing in academics, enrollment, and obviously in demand. So with the wait list that you have, with that increase in enrollment every year. So the view that we have of the school is one that's very strong with a very strong growth trajectory. And that demand is driving your desire to relocate from the Prop 39 space that you're in right now, as well as apply for a new charter in San Juan Capistrano. With that max out, you're looking to get into a new facility or move some amount of students to a new facility by fall of 2025. And I know that we'll kind of have conversations going forward, exactly what number of students that looks like, which grades and things. But right now, the focus on it is to move the middle school grades to that new facility with potential for expansion into high school grades going forward. With the ultimate view being that you have a facility or facilities that are affordable and provide space for about 500 students ultimately for the pre-K through 5th grade and about 500 students in the 6th through 12th grades going forward. So is that picture still accurate for Irvine? Are there big pieces that we're missing here or anything we need to call out in this picture that we have?
I would say that the picture is not perfectly defined yet by the board
Yeah.
with the executive director. This isn't far
Mhm.
off. The only flexibility maybe to incorporate is the idea that there could be two locations or expressions of schools. There may be Irvine International Academy. There
Mhm.
could be a San Juan Capistrano
Mm.
International Academy. There could be a Tustin International Academy.
Okay.
And those could be TK through 5th or 6th, depending on how you want to define academy.
Sure.
Middle school might have a unique site and maybe not. And so those parts yet to be defined, but they're floating in our mind. And so this isn't far off.
Okay.
The principles will apply to whatever's ahead, and we're not definitive on either or. It could be a both and.
Yep.
We're enjoying Prop 39 renting.
Yes.
But
Yep.
stability and pride of ownership comes if we actually move to a different model like we're describing here. So,
Yeah.
let's chime in, or did I get it broad enough for now? Okay.
That's perfect. Yeah. And so much of it also just depends on what we find, in terms of those facilities that are available in your community and what we can move forward with. So that's great. It's great to hear that there's a mentality of flexibility among the board. So that's good to hear. All right.
Started this, by the way, I did a LoopNet just to see how many schools are up for sale in Orange County.
Mhm.
And one is in a strip mall.
Yep. Yep. We've seen charter schools in a lot of different places. So, working with over 700 schools at this point since, 2008 or so when we got started, we've seen some interesting spaces. So yeah, it's definitely important to have that flexible mindset in terms of, what can we make work? What, can we see past the church steeple on the old church building that we're buying and renovating, or, those sorts of things. So being able to see past crazy paint colors and get to that place that, is a successful school building for you. Yeah.
I think, I concur with Doug, in terms of location for the next school, next two schools.
Mhm.
I like to keep it open, I'm a little bit concerned that if, we just put everything in writing, sounds like it's a board decision or the resolution is not, like the San Juan Capistrano. It's never discussed or agreed officially.
Okay.
My reflection.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
That's helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
Interested in everything.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So again, yeah, continuing on with the mindset of flexibility and where that's going to work best for the growth and expansion for the school. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. All right, any other thoughts before we continue on? All right. So how do we get there? The first step would be for us, as we're talking about facilities, where they're located.
Dylan,
Sorry.
because we're short on time, I believe this information was already presented to the board 2 months ago. So is this something new or that you're offering to the board?
Okay, so this was, I know that we had provided this to you, Dr. Bean, to Brett and Felipe in that initial meeting, but it hadn't been given to the full board yet. So I can certainly, yeah, go through this really quickly and kind of get to last question.
I thought it was in last month, but you can continue.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, Kurt, I know you had met with them previously. I thought it was just sort of the first introduction.
It was high level, so I'd say Dylan move forward. Obviously, if the board's already seen this piece of
Okay.
it. Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So going forward, basically what we're looking at is affordability. We're going to try to figure out how many students are we looking at. So we're looking at probably between 5 to 7 million for that overall project cost. That includes purchase and renovations of facility, whatever's needed. And kind of the overall structure of what a lease kind of would look like, and timeline of what we're hoping to do. Again, with potential for growth in the future. We're pretty flexible in how we go through that growth process. If it's a phased approach, if we can get you right in and get you exactly the facility that works for you right now, or if we get you in and this is going to work for 200 kids, but there's space that we're going to renovate in a couple of years when our affordability gets a little bit better, when we grow our enrollment. So those sort of different pieces are available to the school, to make sure that we get you eventually into that facility that works for you. And then the path to ownership piece here is through our partner, Wonderful Foundations. So we've done 2 pooled bond transactions with Wonderful in the past, and we're targeting more going forward. So we bring together a group of schools and offer that to the bond market in a tax exempt package. So it drives down risk for investors. It drives down the rate for the schools and overall lease payments. And then at the end of that lease period, the end of the bond period, Wonderful Foundations then gifts that school facility to the school entity. And so that's how the kind of path to ownership piece works there. During that bond, the payments that the schools are making go to create a giving fund for those schools. So those are annual donations that are given back to the school. The school can use them for whatever, for school buses or programs or HVAC or whatever you're doing, as well as a capital expenditure fund that you can use for renovations on the facility itself, or adding to augmenting anything on the facility. So you continue to work with Grow Schools as the facility servicer, and Wonderful Foundations oversees the bond itself. So, and there's one more slide here about kind of that path. And I know, Brett, you had asked about kind of what that path really looks like when we had met initially. And so that's what this kind of walks you through in what kind of that process looks like. So are there questions about that partnership there with Wonderful Foundations, or what that path looks like?
Yeah, I have a question. What is the typical duration of the lease? You could sign.
Yeah, great question. So here right in the middle there, our typical lease is a 20-year lease with options to extend up to 40 years. The bond is typically going to be between 30 to 40 years. And so that the lease and the gifting of the facility is usually reflective of what that bond term ends up being once it's offered to the market, to make sure that rate is as good as it can be for those schools. But typically it's about a 20-year lease with 4 5-year extensions as part of that. And then at the end of that period is when the facility is gifted to the school.
Who's the actual bond placer? Is it the foundation, or is it somebody like Ziegler or another organization?
It's a great question. So Kurt, you're probably a little better set up to answer that.
So we work with Wonderful Foundations, and Grow Schools is leading the effort with an underwriter. So it could be someone like Morgan Stanley or Chase that is underwriting the bond on behalf of Wonderful Foundations.
So during the 20 years term, there's no termination clause or anything like that, just in case, what is the condition? Just in case.
Yeah. Typically, there's a termination would be only if a school ceases to exist, or there's some massive breach of being in compliance with the lease itself. I don't believe that we've run into that previously, outside of a couple of schools that have closed over the years, but no, we wouldn't.
Or could it be, the environment becomes unsuitable because the facility, it's no longer the best choice. It could be other reasons, right?
Mhm.
So, what if during the 20 years, because 20 years is quite a lot,
It is.
like a business, right? If the schools continue to grow, the whole area is not suitable. What if, the school said, hey, I want a better location?
Yeah. So if the school wants to break the lease and leave the facility.
Are there any penalties for breaking the lease?
Yeah. I'm not sure what the contract language would look like in that case. Are you, Kurt?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say a couple things. One is it's a standard lease, so the lease isn't anything spectacular from any organization that you might lease from. I'd say a couple things. One is, in that instance, it's a triple net lease. So if the school in this case isn't meeting up to its obligations, obviously that's a situation where the lease could terminate. There are also some clauses for the school to terminate if the landlord isn't doing their part. So in that way, termination provisions go both ways. What I think is important, if you're looking at going this route, the idea is that the school that the building that we collectively find is one that you view to be a long-term solution. And now I think Dylan talked a little bit about it, but just to bring the point home, it doesn't mean that the building that we find, purchase, and lease back has to, in its existing form, meet your need for 10 or 20 years. Because if you feel like a part of what you're trying to do is to expand, then we're looking at that building and working with you to do that expansion down the road when the school's ready. But what I would say high level is that if you were looking at a building and you're like, oh, I think this is, good for 1 year. I think what Dylan and I are trying to bring to you is a partnership that envisions a much longer term horizon, with the idea that whatever property that is found is your forever home. You're looking at it as a long-term location for your school. Does that help?
Dylan, can you go to the last slide? So I'm trying to understand, let's say that, we're interested.
Mhm.
Looking at going backwards, do you need to engage Wonderful Foundation at this point to set up the bond, or there's already some pool that's in process of being set up that would need to be in place for all of this to happen? Is that right, or?
So the way that it would move forward is Grow Schools moves forward with purchasing the facility, and at the same time we're continuing to work to create a pool for that next pooled bond. So they're kind of happening in tandem. So there may be a period where Grow Schools owns that facility before it's moved into the Wonderful Foundation's bond. So we don't need to engage Wonderful right away. That's a process that is continuing to go on all the time, as we bring together schools for bond offerings when the market is in a position that is advantageous to move forward with that. So
How many schools are in a pool?
it just depends on the size of the schools, enrollment wise, the costs or the value of those facilities. The very first one that we did was 13 schools. The second Wonderful Foundation bond was 8 schools. So going forward, it'll just depend on the schools that are available, how many, again, the market conditions going forward. But I imagine we'll aim for something pretty similar to those.
So it may be possible that you end up engaging Grow Schools, you have the facility, you're leasing it,
Yep.
but then there is no pathway to ownership because a pool isn't able to be formed or something else, right? I mean, you know, because kind of part of the benefit here is that a school can actually own its facility at the end.
Right.
But that's not a for sure thing, right? That's just a possibility.
I would say it's more than a possibility, but it's the plan. That's our plan going forward and how we provide that path to ownership for schools. So yeah, I would say it's stronger than a possibility because it's the aim that we have for all of our schools that we purchase and we lease back is to go that route.
But
And
those
also,
schools, yeah,
oh, sorry, I was gonna add also that we already have a couple of buildings already that we're looking to transition into the next wonderful pooled bond. So what I want the board to hear is we're not starting with Irvine to the extent that we worked together and found a building, that was kind of brought on a year from now. That wouldn't be the starting line. We've already got a handful of buildings that we're looking to move into the next wonderful pool.
but we're working, so I saw that Grow Schools would be the facilitator of the service provider of the facility, but of the actual lease itself is a 20-year, let's say 20 to 40 year. And so that's between Grow Schools and IIA. Is that right?
Initially, yes, before the pooled bond.
So what point does the pool bond note come into play?
As soon as the pool is ready to be offered to the bond market and we're able to complete that transaction.
So it could be year 3 of the 20-year lease or year 5 of the 20-year lease. And the monthly rent is the same. I mean, obviously you said there's an escalator, but that's all fixed and known. So it doesn't matter who actually is on the lease from the leaser standpoint.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an important point, just to make a fine point at the lease is exactly the same. So if we work together, we purchased the building and leased it back to Irvine, and we'd march down the path to get the building into wonderful foundations. The idea is generally, within a year, and the lease would be exactly the same. There are no changes to the lease as it transitions over into wonderful foundations.
Great. Very creative. It's good. It's good. It's good timing for us. Like I said before, we know where we're headed. We just aren't certain of the components, and some of it that might influence us is the availability of properties that would work within our vision. But that's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think we're positioned well within the market to assist in that type of situation because the expertise from working with so many different charter schools in our past, and understanding kind of what that market actually looks like. So, and I have a colleague that lives about 15 minutes from the school. So, I'll get him to start driving around and looking at spots for you. So.
Are his kids enrolled?
His kid is 6 months old, so not quite yet, but we'll make sure he gets her on the list.
We've even got an address if you want to approach him.
Yeah, you can send a postcard over. Yeah.
It's nice because we have, Brett Felipe who worked with you, and as opportunities arise in a search, we're open to hearing those because they'll dovetail nicely with plans we're developing and vision. But any other thoughts or questions on this while we have these two on the line? I have the advantage, I've gone out for public bonds before and actually got tax exempt bonds for a private school.
Okay.
So. Yeah, go ahead. That's it.
Just to refresh, I think you said based on our 5-year that it looks like the facility cost, where we probably maybe maxing out, would be about 7 million. Is that right?
Yeah, and it just and that depends on how many students are going to be in that facility, but it also depends on what your rent is at the Prop 39 space. So when we're underwriting an affordability aspect of a project, we can look at different kind of levels of rent that could be paid in different facilities. So if your overall organization, you have a single charter, the main thing we're looking at, we don't want you to pay more than 15% of your annual revenue towards rent. And so those are some of the markers that we're looking at. So yeah, I think right now, kind of the initial math, before we got really deep into it, is around 7 million is probably the max of what we're looking at. And that again is a purchase on the facility and any tenant improvements that need to happen. So that's kind of the full project cost is what we're looking at.
And also, if you do, run a cash flow analysis, basically use, whatever proper capital rate. The net present value of this ought not to exceed the current value of, maybe I'll give you guys a reasonable return, right? For sure. So just to make sure, you would do that, you have to do a run, analysis.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And going forward, there's going to be more financial documents that you'll be sharing. And we've been working with Delano already on some of this stuff to make sure that we're buttoned up on our numbers. And because, yeah, nobody benefits from a school that's paying way too much in their rent and can't provide the best educational situation for their students. We don't want you to be stretched in that. So we want to make sure that this works for everybody involved.
And the flip side is we work with schools before who have already been down the path of looking for a facility and had eyes that were way bigger than their stomach, in a way that they'd be looking for buildings that are probably two times the value that they can afford. So what Dylan and I are walking you through is saying, hey, given where we are right now, here's a range, the 5 to 7 million, that given the projection of student counts and where we are now is what feels about right. So that as you get out there and start looking, you have a pretty good idea of what it is that's affordable.
Okay, we'll end it with this real quick, Dylan and team. As you know, part of the work of the executive director, along with the growth committee, will be to vet at least 3 viable options, and certainly this is one of them. And so we'll certainly be in conversation with you, but we need to present the board a couple more viable options. All right. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And yeah, any other questions that come up after today, shoot them our way. Give me a email or call anytime.
All right. Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Very good. Stay right there, Dr. Bean, because our last discussion item, if you wouldn't mind, is going to be our local performance indicator report. And thank you for taking us through that. Before we move on to our action items. And Mary Beth, any comments on any discussion? Okay, great.
Mary Beth, I'm wondering if
Oh,
I
I'm
should
sorry,
go on Zoom.
I missed one, Dr. Bean. This is Brett leading out on item B, discussion and update on the executive director search. Could you give us some context on why we're doing a search and where we're at?
Sure, our very own executive.
It's not on. Oh, it's on, but it's just.
We see that, yeah.
Watch this.
Can you hear me okay? Our very own executive director, Dr. Bean, has applied for the Orange County Superintendent position. So we may be in a circumstance finding out later this afternoon what the decision will be. In the event that Dr. Bean is selected and he accepts that position, we will be needing a new executive director. We started a process with his consent and knowledge. Opened job posting on May 24th that closed on June 10th. We had 27 applicants, of which 4 applicants made it to the first round. And that was held a couple of weeks ago. It was done over Zoom. And then we had a second round, which was conducted yesterday. And in the second round, there were 2 applicants that participated. So pending any decisions later this afternoon from what we hear from the Orange County Board of Education, we'll then potentially have to arrange for a special board meeting and then a regular board meeting where we'll be able to publicly disclose the contract and the final candidate after we've had an opportunity to negotiate and come to terms.
Thank you, and thank you to the board for taking the extra time for those interviews. I think every board member was in at least one of the rounds, along with our HR director and leading the pathway on that. So very good, and we'll continue to respond as the need arises. That brings us then, as I forecast a little too fast, the local performance indicator report. Thank you, Dr. Bean.
All right. As you know, the state of California reports schools' performances through the California dashboard. And the California dashboard includes SBAC data, chronic absenteeism, suspension rates, all kinds of indicators. Part of the reporting is what's called local indicators. And I think I have the wrong presentation up. Let me just make sure. Let me just get the right presentation. No, this is the right one. Okay. And so part of the reporting is that the schools or the districts, and since we're considered districts, are allowed to self-reflect on what we call local indicators. And then it gets reported to the state of California. So I'm going to share with you our local indicators. You already know what the LCAP is. It addresses 8 state priorities in these 3 buckets: conditions of learning, student outcomes, and engagement. So our local indicators should also address these 3 buckets. We're not going to go over the timeline. I wonder, here we go. So let's talk about what the local indicators are. It's basics, which are teachers, instructional materials, and facilities, implementation of academic standards, parent engagement, local climate survey, and then access to a broad course of study. So here is how we have done. Let me just fast forward. All right, under priority 1, basics of condition. The number of percent of misassigned teachers this past year was 0. That's good. Number of percentage of students without access to their own copies of standard aligned instructional material is 0. Number of identified instances where facilities do not meet the good repair standard. This was 0. That's what we want. So good news there. Let's go on to state priority 2, implementation of academic standards. We have to do a self-reflection, each district, using a rubric tool scale from 1 to 5, where 1 is exploration or research and 5 is full implementation and sustainability. So let's go into the implementation of standards. In providing professional learning for teachers, that's a 5. Make instructional materials that are aligned with standards, 5. Implementing policies or programs to support staff, 5. Progress implementing each of the following academic standards adopted by a state board for all students. That's almost a 5. We still want to do this better with our science. Once we do that and sustain it with our science program, that'll be a 5. Success at identifying and supporting learning needs for teachers and staff, 5. Let's go on to priority 3, parent and family engagement. Again, we use the same rubric. And here's how we score building relationships. As you can see, 5, building relationship with staff and families, partnerships for student outcomes, seeking input for decision-making, all 5s. School climate, we will be reporting to the state our strengths and areas of growth. Strengths are that 88% of students highly value the relationship with teachers based on the family and student survey, an increase of 3% from the prior year. 95% of students reported feeling that their school is safe, an increase of 5% from the prior school year. More than 86% of students stated that their teachers have established a positive community, showcasing the inclusive and welcoming atmosphere within classrooms. Now, area of focus and growth for next year, to continue student-teacher relationships. Despite the majority of students valuing their current connections, ongoing PD will be provided to educators focusing on strengthening these relationships and improving overall student engagement. Regular reviews of safety protocols, drills, and collaboration with stakeholders will be conducted to ensure ongoing safety and well-being of our students. And then we want to explore opportunities for stronger connections across grade levels, interests, and we aim to promote a deeper sense of community throughout the entire school. We have really strong teams in grade spans, like K1 work very well together, but we'd like to see that collaboration go all the way to middle school as well. State priority number 7, access to broad course studies. Our narrative that we will be publishing on the dashboard is pretty much this. All students, including those in unduplicated groups and individuals with exceptional needs, are granted access to the essential subjects such as math, ELA, science, social studies, and PE. And then next bullet, we strive for equitable access and enrollment for students at all grade levels, including those from unduplicated groups and students with exceptional needs. We do not screen any students that want to come to our school. We're not allowed to as a charter school. So we accept all students, no matter whether they're part of an unduplicated group. Unduplicated group means low socioeconomic. It means English learners, special education. Those are all unduplicated. So we accept all students, and especially students with exceptional needs. Our next step is that we're going to submit our local indicators to the dashboard in July. So all of the data that you just saw right now under these 7 priorities gets uploaded to the dashboard, and then it becomes public in the fall. That is the local indicator board presentation. Any questions?
I always look at Molly and say, what do you think of those indicators? Plus you have personal experience here, but give us an educator's perspective on what these mean to a school environment.
I think this is what not just the parents are looking for, I think all the educators. Kids, they probably don't really know that yet, but as an educator, that's just perfect. I mean, look at detail and what we're looking for the students, for the community, and talk about the relationship, how we all work together in the community to build up these young people.
It's another piece in the puzzle. It's another piece in the puzzle, right? Because for me, when I always look at, no matter what it is, I look at, make sure that all the pieces look right? So this is another piece that looks very positive. So it just keeps building that building.
I like seeing areas of focus and growth because we've come a long way, baby, if I could use that quote. But nobody ever arrives in the educational environment. You achieve a certain level of excellence, but it's a moving continuous bar. And to see that exploring opportunities across grade levels, first you had to get continuity with the grade levels, the key transitions, K to first, because you can lose a lot of students between K and first. But how exciting is it going to be to have even maybe some 6th graders and 6th grade teachers interacting with 3rd, 4th graders and showing the vision of what's ahead? It'd be really exciting.
I just have a question. So the grading, 5, who signed this score, the school district?
No, good question.
It is the self-assessment, which is the school district, the executive director, along with a consultant. So he's an independent consultant. So we do it together.
With some survey data.
Oh, yes, and of course, the survey data that we received.
All right,
Yeah, that's real. Those are real numbers, real answers.
okay. Yeah, so in your report, you're gonna also, kind of show the comparison against last year's data.
Yeah, the dashboard actually it defaults to that anyway. So it has last year's indicators
Yeah.
and then this year's indicators. So it shows the comparisons.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like year over year improvement.
Exactly.
Okay. That's good.
It's a great report. Any other thoughts from board members? Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Bean. It just puts in writing what we've come to see and observe. So very nice.
We're gonna need a bigger school.
Need a bigger vote.
That's right. That's right.
That's great. Well, we get to move on to action items, Roman numeral 8. These will be individual. And again, Mary Beth, let me know if there's any comments from public as well. We're going to make more informational. There won't be an action on this one today. But I'll make this announcement broadly for the entire community, both within Irvine International and beyond. That in this season, we're looking at people who might have an interest in board participation, and this would be the season where they could reach out to another board member or myself directly, or even our executive director for a conversation on that. I've had the privilege of being in some conversation with a person currently serving on our PTO board as treasurer. Her name's Tiffany Kraft, and during the next several weeks, we'll give her an opportunity to be known by some of the other board members personally. And I would envision at some point we'll extend an offer to her if all are in agreement. But I wanted to just show this as a board action item, that's a forecast for a coming board meeting. And of course, in between, I'll just energize all the board members to make personal connection together there and invite the public to express interest and board members to seek out others as well. Great. Any discussion on that one today? I don't know that there would be other than what I forecast, but yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to ask, would it be, I know that Tiffany has through the limited interactions with the PDO, that would be very, very nice, if we have like a brief summary, a brief bio of Tiffany. Or even better, like a CV or something.
Oh, a CV, yeah.
Yeah, would be very helpful for the board to consider. I think that'll be nice.
I like that actually, even as a something to see as you're preparing for maybe a phone conversation or a coffee or something like that.
I love the opportunity
Fortu-
to interact.
Fortunately, she's right behind me, and so she hears that.
My resume.
I've got,
Okay.
you know what, I'll forward it on to everybody, because I've had a chance to review. And then I asked her for it again this morning, and she reminded me, you have it.
Yeah.
So the process is, what I hear is that each board member has the opportunity to individually reach out to Tiffany, get to know her, look at her CV, but do not discuss it among each other until the next board meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you for that. There it is. It's now on my screen. Wonderful. Well, then let's, and by the way, thank you, Tiffany, for patience as well, but also your existing service on PTO. It's been wonderful. Let's move into action item B. The board will consider adopting the 2024-25 LCAP plan, and we had a beautiful presentation on that last meeting. Let's pause for any comments, and then I'll ask for a motion. And I know the Robert's Rule of Orders, people get upset because you want a motion first, but
There is a quick presentation that I'll just show some of the changes because it is a new LCAP cycle. So that means we have to start another 3-year cycle again. So if you want me to do that first before the discussion, or if you want a motion,
No,
and then we can do it.
let's go ahead and do that now. I have it up on my screen already, but yeah, if we
Okay.
can share that with everybody.
Share that real
and
quick.
Take us to those.
So the LCAP is in your board folder, and so here is quickly what you'll see. We have our 3 goals. Ensure all scholars, oh, by the way, we got your feedback last month and public feedbacks last month to establish these goals, as well as a lot of stakeholder engagement with PTO, ELAC, Coffee of the Principals, parent workshop, all of these different ways to get engagement from our stakeholders. And we all landed on these 3 goals: ensure all scholars are meaningfully engaged and achieve in rigorous and standard aligned dual immersion program in both English and Mandarin, and students are engaged in academic intervention if necessary. Goal 2, create a safe, inclusive, and welcoming school climate where students and staff are engaged and fully invested in students' academic, health, and social emotional learning. Create an engaged parent, student, and staff overall community population that is fully invested in the actively connected to the school community and academic progress. We're not going to go over each of these actions, but what happens is after each main goal, we create actions, and then our back office finance group, Delano and I, we then assign dollar amounts to each action. And that's what you see in the LCAP. So here's a list of the actions for that first goal. And then the key metrics in terms of how do we monitor the progress of that goal. Here are the metrics in this gray box area here. I'll pause there. Any questions for goal 1 in terms of actions and metrics? Because later this afternoon, we're gonna have we're gonna review this 2023 and 2024 school year in terms of the metrics. Anything, questions there?
I have just a general question. Some of the testing that was done at the end of the school year, were those provided to the families?
Yes, they were provided to the families individually, their reports. We did not provide overall school reports yet until they are officially made public. But we did provide them preliminary results, which I'll share with you today via Parent Square.
When are the official results?
Once, so official results are sometime in July and August.
Mid-summer.
Yes. All right, so goal 2, as you can see, there are our actions and key metrics. And then goal 3, in order to create an engaged community, we do have a bilingual community outreach coordinator. So Sai has been moved from office assistant to this role. And we also do have contracted out with a Russian translator. So she provides access to this goal. Okay. So what happens now is that you then today will approve the LCAP. We send it to then our authorizer, who's OCDE, and then we post it on our website. Okay.
Discussion in addition to what we've heard? All right, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the 2024-25 LCAP as presented by Dr. Bean. David motions, and we got Brett seconding, and we'll go down the line then on a vote. David, yes. Doug is a yes. Brett?
Aye.
And Molly?
Yes.
And Felipe?
Yes.
Wonderful. And we'll go ahead and then see that presented to our authorizer. Item C, the board will consider approval of the 2024-2025 budget. You wonder in a school, when is budget season? Always. We see it at different stages throughout the year. And now we get to that predictive stage for next year where we finalize our, budget prediction for next year. Delano, thank you for remaining with us for this point. And if you'll take us through the high levels on it, we'll invite questions and then.
Can we pull it up?
Yes, please.
Okay, hold on. Pull up on our Word document.
I just didn't want to have to switch
And then Word.
You guys still hanging in there? No one's sleepy yet?
Well,
Huh?
yes, and yes. There was a yes and yes.
We may need a teacher in here to give
Well,
up, get up and stretch, and maybe some recess would do you guys good, right?
Playground.
Yeah, a little PE time. There we go. Thank you. All righty, folks. So Dr. Breen presented the LCAP. Per statute, the budget follows right behind that because essentially that information is reflected here. Keep in mind not to fret, right? We have plenty of opportunities during the coming months after school starts to revise this if anything goes left or right or south of where we anticipated to be. And if you recall last year, I think we did just one revision at some point during December, January, somewhere in that time frame. But if any of our projections change, obviously then we will come back and incorporate them here. So Dr. Bean, just scroll up a little bit. I'm always reaching to touch this, thinking that it will do that. Our enrollment, 510 students, 494.7 ADA. just hit the page down, will you? I won't bother to give you the projections over here, the multi-year, those are obviously just there for, context purposes. These are some of our funding rates here. You can just hit the page down. and
I
go
don't know
to
what
the
that
next.
page down is. I'll just
Oh.
keep going down.
I'll show you.
It's not on this is not PDF.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it's not. This is, okay.
Oh,
Is that what you want?
no, you see that little button, here?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, let me see. Page. What page you want to go?
Two. 3, 4, 3.
Okay. Here, let's.
Oh, it's here. I could do it on this one, no?
No, that's
Okay.
not. Okay, just tell me where to go. I'll just-
Keep going, keep
This
going.
one?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, this is 23, 24. I left that up there just so you guys remind you where we're coming from and where we're going, right? So you can see there the increase in enrollment. LCFF funding 6.2 million compared to what we have currently this year, 4.1. Scroll down a little bit. This year, we're going to introduce some new funding in here, but there are some moving parts with that. I had Mary Beth take off the CONAP because the federal addendum must be approved and the state has to approve that before I can even complete the cars for it. But as you can see here, a little bit of increase in our federal revenues, small uptick for a federal lunch and then a small uptick for special ed. I don't see Mr. Fernandez in the room. He and I were talking about that this morning. What we're missing here now is this. So we've already spent up all the grant. So congratulations to Dr. Bean and the staff. We've spent all 600,000 of it over the past 3 years. So that's gone. This is the last remaining amount that we did receive this year. So you can see here, we now have just that small amount there, but we're going to try to backfill that with a little bit of these federal dollars, Title I, II, maybe Title III, because I think you said
Oh,
you
no,
had quite a
definitely
bit.
Title III is our
Yeah.
biggest
It's
contributor.
gonna be the
We have
big, the
huge,
bread
yeah.
and butter there because you have a lot of English learners,
Yeah.
et cetera, a little bit of Title IV, right? Let's scroll down a little bit here.
So we
Yes,
weren't
sir.
Getting the Title III because we weren't.
A Couple of things. So the federal funding, in federal funds are a little bit more complicated in terms of how you apply for them, right? It's not really like how the state, once you're a school, they just start to roll in. These you have to apply for individually, specific ones. And depending on the makeup of the school, the demographics of the school, it will reflect higher or lower revenues here depending on that, right? So if you have a lot of English learners, you'll get more Title III money. If you have more, if you will, low income, et cetera, you'll get more Title I money based on your enrollment, et cetera, percentage of that. This school is in that lower percentile of that, so you don't get as much. Look at it this way, or put it in this context. The higher your free and reduce or your unduplicated count is, the more of these revenues you get. The lower that, the less you will get
But
for those.
my understanding is we're now gonna be receiving.
Some of
So here's the thing, you're always weighing in decision of whether to apply for these Title I money, 2, 3, 4,
Mhm.
is how much you're gonna bring in based on the number of students. In our case, the number of students in Title I, II was low. Next year, our Title III students are gonna be high versus the federal program monitoring of receiving those federal money.
Yeah.
If you think PCSGP is strict, this is much more strict, and it will, every single dollar, and if you get audited, it's a pretty big deal. So it wasn't worth the federal program monitoring or even worth receiving the federal money in those areas because their percentage was so small. But now that English learners in Title III is higher, it's definitely worth it now.
I'll
So
give
it
it
wasn't
to
a
you.
miss. Sorry.
Yeah. To summarize what Dr. Bean just said, sometimes the juice was just not worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
For some of these here.
It's true.
To be quite honest with you, because we would have spent more time and resources to apply and take care of them than we're actually gonna get. I had an invoice the other day to send back $1 to the federal government, and by the time I added up what we spent to do it, it was, they could have just said, hey, we're good.
If I put
Right.
some money, just dollar, the schools that I ran at Aspire, were very high Title I schools. And they, you know, they would give it $120,000 for that. English learner, Title III is about the same as us, and they got about $15,000 for that. So we'll get 15,000 and around for Title III, but hardly anything for Title I.
Yeah.
So was it, I loved your analogy, right? Wasn't worth it. Try to squeeze what you can.
Did that, yeah, not much is gonna come out there, just almost like a juiceless orange in a sense. Our state revenues, 1,057,000, and again, you're adding more students, you're gonna get more in terms of for nutrition programs. Your mandate block grant, obviously, for your K-8. ELOP, as you can see here, I put that in, that's the after-school program that you guys run so well. I believe all the parents here, love quite a bit. You're gonna get some increases in your special ed revenues there as well. These are one-time funds that went away. So anytime you see that space there, we spent most of that. This is a one-time, and I'll tell you something about this year, just for a second. So in past years, when there was a surplus at the state level, we would get these one-time revenue streams. It's almost like Christmas in July. Not so this year because of, the deficit that the state faced, et cetera, et cetera. So I do not anticipate that the governor will have any room to dole out any Christmas gifts, as I call them, this time around. And in fact, I think the budget that he will sign, he will have to make further concessions. As of last Friday, the legislature did sign it, but when it comes to his desk, there may be some redlining that will happen just to kind of make things work out. So I do not anticipate us getting any of these one-time revenues over here, which was always a nice treat. Scroll down a little bit more here. I sort of left this kind of, where it was from last year in terms of contributions from PTO. And any other donations or friends of Irvine International, including the gala, et cetera, et cetera. All told, we're looking at about 7.5 million in revenues. Salaries have been updated, including staffing, et cetera. You'll see that on the next about 3 more pages from now in terms of the makeup of the school. Keep going, Dr. Bean. 2.4 million there compared to what we were this year of 1.9 million in certificated staff. You can see the uptick here in salaries in terms of classified as well. And again, you're adding more students, so you're going to need those aides in the classroom. I believe we even have some additional SPED employees as well that are in there. Benefits are about par for the course in terms of the fixed costs for some of these. This year, in terms of insurance, obviously will be going up. 1,044,000 compared to what we had budgeted last year, 710,000 overall, almost $1 million difference in salaries and benefits from last year. And I say last year, and you guys know I'm meaning 23, 24, even though we're still in it. Program wise, scroll down here, Dr. Bean, just a little bit so I can get to the bottom. So we've added roughly here 200,000 more in terms of salaries and benefits, things like that. You can see an increase in the lunch program costs. Obviously up there, more in terms of technology, curriculum, et cetera. With upticks there. Scroll down a little bit more, Dr. Bean. Let's see if there's anything else that really stands out here. Here in this category here, again, a little bit more in terms of non-capitalized equipment to support the school. Scroll down to the bottom of this one. Remind me to shrink and get rid of some of these blanks.
Facility lease.
Yeah, facilities lease, this came up earlier today. This does have the additional cost built in there. You can see what we're paying this year for that. Now we're paying, almost $100,000 more for a few more classrooms, if I'm not mistaken. And in fact, at some point, maybe there could be some advocacy to open up the entire school to you guys after a while. At this rate, this should be for the entire place here.
Delano,
Yes, sir.
what in terms of percentage, what's the percentage of the rental revenue?
Rental
Roughly.
to our
10%?
expense? Yeah, so let me back up. So whatever this number is divided into our expenses, and I don't know what that is.
You want
Yeah, estimate
expenses or
probably-
revenue? Did you
Yeah,
want
revenue.
To
You wanna
revenue?
guess revenue?
Yeah,
Or-
Yeah, so quick math, so we have like
Oh.
7 million up there, stop. Too far.
Nope, going down. right here.
This year's
7.5
revenue,
million.
total revenue, okay.
So 7 million, if you have a
So currently
calculator,
it's,
divide
About 6,
Mhm.
6% or something.
4, 3, 7, 21, so
What did you say? Four what?
it
Four
was, 427, so
27
4, 7, 20, so almost 3%.
divided by.
What is it?
70%,
No.
72.5?
That's-
Yes, true.
5.6%.
Thank you. There we go.
That's my estimate.
Yes, there you go.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right. And, for the state lottery, income, is that a recurring every year?
Every year.
So not a per, per head count, right?
It is that the lottery amount, so for example, for lottery, we get, there are 2 buckets for lotteries, we get $72 for one. And then another one, we get $177. So the two combines roughly about $200 per ADA for that. And that goes up. And one of the beauty about the lottery revenues is that the higher those jackpots are, you get more. So that adds to the pot that you get. So you really want, when you have like those $700-800 million, that means more people are gonna play it, and then that translates into more dollars for the school the following year. I can remember when the lottery rates were like $40.
Yeah, the reason why I, ask about the estimate of the rental,
Mhm.
was compared to the revenue, because earlier, the gross school, whatever, gross school.
Gross
These
school.
guys mentioned 15%, I'm a
Right.
little bit concerned.
Yes.
So I wanted to see,
Yes.
what's our rate right
So it's,
now?
Right.
it's better to be here in a Prop 39
Yeah.
building.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's why I raised the question.
So
Yeah.
Grove Schools, that program that they have, and I'll digress for just a second. That is for, you're in a far better position because you have a home already that you exist in. Not for any other expansion, obviously, the district is not gonna give you another property, right? So that will be maybe for when you expand beyond here, right? But this is a sweet deal, even though I complain about having to pay $400,000 a year for it. This is a far better deal than anything that you will find from Grove Schools or on
That's
any
right.
commercial market anywhere.
Next
Right.
year, we're gonna be even, the percentage is gonna be even lower.
Yes, we hope so. And if there's any more room in here to be had, to be taken, I absolutely encourage us to do that over time. I'll keep moving on. I'll bottom line this for us. We're at net income here's total expenses, 6.9 million. Our net income for this year, we're projected 546,000. And we get better as the year goes on, or the out years goes on. Dr. Bean, jump to the next slide, please. Page 7. Keep going, keep going. Perfect. Stay right here for a sec.
Okay.
A little bit more so I can see the header.
I don't know what just happened.
Yeah, I think that, do
I
that.
think you touched it. Click back on top, on the top.
Oh, that's me? It
Click-
actually
There
did
you go,
something.
there you go. there you go.
Oh, I did not know that. I thought,
Okay. That's
so
it.
it is a touch screen to some
It is a
degree.
touchscreen, yeah.
Okay. This one. So as you can see here, we're growing in staff, right? I think we have over 60 or so folks here now.
53.
53, there we go, right? And as I mentioned before, you can see here, staffing ratio, et cetera, 29.25 in terms of our total certificated staff. Scroll down just a little bit there. About 19 in terms of our support staff, including the instructional aides. One of the beauty about this place is that you have an instructional assistant in every classroom. Rare is that an occurrence now?
But it's costly.
Right? But it's
$300,000.
costly, right? It's expensive to do that, but the support is there to make your lives a little bit easier as parents, et cetera, and also make the staffing a little bit more, if you will, successful in that, because I think everyone does need a little bit of support in the classroom. That's quite a bit to manage. Next one, please. And these are just the benefits associated with that. Those all roll back up onto that next page. This is just our LCFF calculator
You
that
skipped through, like,
generates,
the
you can
net
skip.
income real fast, did you?
Well,
Did
I'm
you
gonna
show
come
them
back.
that? Okay.
I'm gonna come back to it,
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't miss it.
No, you didn't
Yeah,
miss
you
it.
didn't
Okay.
miss it, no.
You saw that.
Yeah.
$500,000 net income.
We're turning the corner.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, we are
Yeah.
turning the corner. I'm gonna go to the cash flow really quick, because it's still, it's on that one too. Keep going.
All right.
And I'm mindful that you guys have been sitting here since 9 o'clock too,
Yes.
so it's. Keep going. Don't be shy. You can
Okay,
scroll.
okay. me when.
Keep going.
Tell me where to go.
Keep going. It's good.
Okay.
There we go, stop.
Here, okay.
There's this. Yeah, right, so this is big picture here, right? Down a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so we see our there, you can see it, and again, the timing of all of these expenses and our revenues dictate how our bottom line looks. A little bit more, Dr. B,
Okay,
all the way to the bottom.
there we go. That's
There we go, this is where I wanna be, right in here, right? As you can see, month over month, though, we don't, we run a deficit most of the year, which is.
beginning of the year.
Yeah, right, for a big chunk of the year, look at that, right? But our cash, as you can see here, right? I have a little bit of borrowing that I've anticipated in here, paying back some of what we borrowed this year, because that's gonna cross over. But as I mentioned, that as we get to about July, August, September, October, right, I'm gonna stop that, right? I'm not doing it anymore. This is my line in the sand right here, for growth schools, right? So if all things being equal, at that point in time, that's, we would have paid them back everything we borrowed, and we are now on that way to sustainability. What I'm banking on is that the P2 ADA that we will recognize starting this summer will be that catalyst that drives us forward into next year as well, because like I said before, it takes a few years to turn this ship around from being upside down like that, right? We just didn't do a quick flip over like that, but our cash flow says that we'll be fine, right? Based on this, right? And as I look at it today, I'm confident, right, in what we're doing and where we're going with it. And I hopefully, as we get into the next year after this one, in that 25, 26 year, that's when we're now back on solid ground in terms of financially, fiscally solvent, enrollment wise, et cetera. We'll have that. And if we get that petition in terms of countywide, that makes us even greater, because now we're able to pull all these other students in that will help that bottom line in terms of growth for revenues, and overall just net income.
So what's the month that we're gonna stop borrowing? I know it's gonna be
This is
September, August.
September, October, right there, right in here.
Is that given the grant, the K grant also, K Family Foundation?
That's
grant?
I'm gonna throw that into revenues for this fiscal year right here, so it'll help the cash flow for this fiscal year. So I'm gonna, as long as this board approves this today.
Yeah, we approved it.
I will make that the stamp to say, yes, this will be recognized in this fiscal year and not next year. That is the budget. I don't think I have another page here. You can
Yeah, that's it.
kill this one off.
All right. So stop sharing.
Yes, and
Okay.
again, as I said, any new information that changes any of these projections or any of the outcomes here, will bring a budget back, a revised budget to the.
So the
board
bottom
for
line is
approval.
that
Yes.
the budget net income is over $500,000.
Yep.
Trying to, and not spend more than that, because we don't want to get under.
It's very conservative, yet rich in program.
Yeah, the only
Yes.
thing I'm gonna address with you is, 88, 97?
I ticked it at 1%.
Okay.
Because you're at that for P2.
Or, I know, but, okay. I'm just me, so get them all done.
Conservative.
Don't get nervous.
We have, let me forecast what's ahead. Biological break again.
Okay.
But we do have this vote to take after any discussion, the nice thing is we're in the budget all the time together, which is good, but I don't want to miss the opportunity for anybody to comment or invite any questions while we have Delano here before we vote.
Delano,
Yes, sir.
just out of curiosity, if you compare last year's forecast versus, the actual data, what's the deviation?
So 2 years, you're talking actuals from
Yeah.
22, 23?
How good are you?
Oh, yeah, how good are you?
I'm pretty good. Well, let's put it this way. This
You
year
don't
will
wanna
be
get
the,
upset,
ask me that question in September.
Right.
Because I don't want to use 22, 23 because that was an anomaly year. And that was when we were at our lowest in terms
Yeah.
of the enrollment and things like that. So it wouldn't be fair because even to compare the first year to that second year wouldn't be fair because of the tremendous growth and you lost it all. And then, so now this year is a more of a stabilizer year for us. And we can say compare over the last 3 years, this one. But I'm pretty confident that because we lost $1 million that second year, because that was just the recovery from, yeah, from the programs and things like, yeah, hey, Brent, I'm glad you can smile now.
Yeah. Basically, get assessment of how accurate we can,
Yes.
because we obviously improved the last year's,
Mhm.
Yep.
the budget,
Mhm.
right?
I'll show you in September, when I'll be closing the
Fiscal year
books.
closes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and then we'll definitely, I'm gonna keep a snapshot of that conversation. I like that. I like that.
That's great. We're setting the point.
Mhm.
Any other discussion on budget? I'll move then. We approve the 2024-2025 budget as presented. David has a second, and we'll start at Felipe's side. Felipe.
Yes.
On the budget, and Molly
Yes.
and Brett. Aye. And I'm a yes, and David. Yeah. And we have it. Let's take it for all that are online too. Let's just take 5 minutes, just stand up. I have to go to the restroom and then we'll be back right at it. We'll
Yeah,
finish.
the rest of these should be really
Yeah.
quickly, because they're things you've seen before. This is a long day for you guys, huh?
It is, it is.
Much longer than you thought.
We've got 5 more minutes.
Yeah, those are, this is.
Oh.
Yeah, help me. Here. Oh, yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Those are all, those are quick. Those 5 should take no more than 5 minutes
Okay.
total.
All right, sounds good.
So you excited?
Yeah, I'm nervous.
Excited? Yeah, no.
No, no.
I know you can't stop moving.
I know, I'm like back and
Yeah.
forth.
No,
But
that's
I'm
okay.
I'm always like that anyway.
I was like,
I got ADHD.
what's wrong with this guy? And then I remember, oh, that's right.
This guy's got a
big
big day today.
Oh my gosh. I'm
Sometimes
down.
it's good to just talk through it, you know what I mean?
Let's see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's to be expected. You got nothing to worry about. I've seen the competition.
Oh, come on, it's gonna be
And,
tough, so we'll see what
And
happens.
they're out of there.
It's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
I'm nervous. They're all, you know what, they are all exceptional leaders, so.
Nobody
we'll see
likes
what
them.
happens. Appreciate
Nobody
it.
likes them.
That's humbling, but
Is everybody online with them?
yeah, it's all being recorded. So.
Oh, Lord.
We didn't say that. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm gonna be quiet the rest of the week.
It's all good.
But yeah,
No, it's
gonna be
a
good.
really good group of
Mhm.
candidates, so. You'll see.
Yep.
Next meeting, special or otherwise. Gemini's motion to extend Miller. Time out.
You got a special.
Consistency. Now we want to travel. I'm keeping that in the folder so far.
If you can just. I was like, yeah.
When Mary Beth says it, it's a whole lot different.
Oh, really? Are we recording this? You stop the recording. That's all right.
No, I can trim.
So he's gonna want
You
to-
can jump.
Oh, good. I'm glad you can edit out.
It's okay.
It's all right. Did we approve North Compass in our?
Yeah, we did it.
Our global one. It's still an incredible value. I'm really charging us, but we appreciate it.
No.
I know. what it's for. I know.
Look at it,
If
CFO.
we had to hire what you provide for us with individuals on staff, it'd be $250,000. Easily. I know, because.
That's why I do what I do.
Need 3 people.
Yeah,
But it's a quote,
it's a reasonable price for what we do, and my staff loves working with you guys.
Consider the alternative.
Yes.
Just very difficult. That's why, when you have districts, people say, oh, there's heavy in the, the district central office, very heavy. Well, I think it is pretty heavy, but school sites.
we're there.
Anyways, move up on that.
That's good. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Right in here is good. All right, you guys have,
That's perfect.
Get some of that together.
Wonderful. We resume again then, June 18th, regularly scheduled board meeting for Irvine International. We'll continue on with Roman numeral 8 action items, and now we're at B, the LCAP budget overview for parents. And thank you again, Delano Jones.
Right, awesome, perfect. You guys have seen this before. We presented this last year. Basically, what this is just a summation of the LCAP and the budget that I just presented. Normally, this is for parents or anyone. You need to post this on your website so the public can see it. This is just more or less a summary of all that information in terms of how we're using those funds to support students, right? So as we mentioned here, your entire budget, 6.2 million, you received about 422,000 in supplemental and concentration funds that are used for targeted towards those high needs students. Scroll down just a little bit, Dr. Bean, which is roughly about 6% of your LCFF revenues. Keep going. And I'll just read from here. The total revenue projected for Irvine, 7.5 million, 6.2 million is LCFF money, 1,057,000. Other state funds, 133,000 in local, 93,000 in federal. Of that, 6.2 million, 424,000 was that number I showed you, is used for services to those high need students. High need students are your foster youth, English learners, and low income students. Right, if this was a high percentage of these students, that's when you'll see that Title I money really flow in, right? So these are the students, when you hear me talk about that, high need students, those are what they are. A little bit more, down a little bit more so we can see this. Perfect. So these are the budgeted expenditures in our general fund. These are the budgeted expenditures in our LCAP there. Let's go down a little bit more. And down here, I just provide a list of some of the items that are not listed in there because they were not goals or related to any goals or actions. Some of them were authorizing fees, some fiscal services and some consultant and some of the operational expenditures. For last year, 24, 25, 23, 24, this is what we we're basing it on, 424,000, right? We spent 441,000. So we received this much in terms of those amounts, but we want to put a little bit more behind that in terms of making sure that we're supporting those high need students more than what we're even getting for it. For 23, 24, we received 318 for those students, and we spent 405,000. So again, there was more investment into those students than we were actually required to based on that. That is the long and short of this document. This really is more informational purposes, but it must be approved. It does tie out to our budget and to the resources that are in the LCAP. This is something that we will post on the website. If any person comes in and asks for a copy of your budget or anything like that, you can quickly show them this document. It summarizes everything. Questions?
Questions and thoughts? Would it be fair to say then that Irvine International Academy is recognizing the priorities of the state of California and slightly exceeding their expectations, or at least adding our extra funds to that to enhance?
I could not said that better myself. Thank you. Yes.
Great job, Dr. Dean and the team.
Yes. And really and truly, I don't give this guy here enough credit for the things that he does. But I'm just the tool, but you know, he's the guy that's actually the one that's really making.
We appreciate you.
happen.
Making it happen.
Yes. This does require
Board approval.
board approval.
Any other discussion?
It's okay.
Mhm.
So the last coffee with Dr. Bean that I was at, you know, kind of a particular parent was very grateful for the extra effort done for her special needs child. So this is part of that effort with that, this funding, this.
Well, special ed is a different bucket,
Separate.
separate bucket than this. High needs would be considered the low income, homeless. youth
Oh, okay.
population.
So
English
Go
learners.
back up, you'll
That
see
one,
the
yeah.
She
definition.
wouldn't, her particular
Right.
thing did not fall within that.
Mhm.
Correct.
Because we get a separate allotment of funding for students with disabilities.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to Felipe's point, that Dr. Bean acknowledged earlier, as a charter school, we're open to everybody. And we're gonna meet even the special needs to the degree we can, and then the at-risk youth as well.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's a good report. I'll invite a motion to adopt this report. Motion. Brett first and then Molly. Oh, it looks like Molly might have beat you, David, on that one, but that's okay. We'll start with you on our vote. David, vote on that. Yes. Doug, is it yes, Brett?
Aye.
And Molly? And Felipe?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you for that presentation, the LCAP for parents.
This one, yeah.
Yeah, bring this one up first. This one's easy. And then that resolution, as long as the board president, secretary signs it, we're good. You've seen this last year as well. So in our budget, there's a line item for these funding, this EPA amount. It falls right below the LCFF revenues. You see that called out there, $98,000. This was a voter approved proposition back in 2016. And because of that, we're required to report on it every year in terms of how much we receive and where we're going to spend it. We're going to receive for 24-25, 98,940. And basically, we are just going to allocate that to staff salaries, which is what we've always done in the past. That is the long and short of this document. The resolution that falls behind it, Dr. Bean, you can bring it up really quick just so I can refresh the board's memory
Where
on
is
it.
the resolution?
Keep
Right
going, it should be
here.
there someplace. It's a bunch of lawyer speaker that only Doug probably understands in here, because it has all these whereas and therefores and what ifs. Right? I'm sure he took one read at this and he's like, yep, I understand it. Right, scroll back up. Right, so the board must sign this and approve that we're going to accept those funds and spend them according to this resolution here. Scroll back up at the top. I have a curiosity about when this was more, page 1. Okay, 2016 is what I'm looking for. So this was when it was first approved. And basically, these funds are coming from high income taxes. It tells you down here if you want to read it, where the sources of funds are coming from. So it's additional taxes, and I think it's like less than 1% tax that you pay for these funds.
So
All
don't
right.
leave without signing it. Mary Beth will print it out for you.
Yep.
So you guys sign and we can publish it on our website.
Yep. And then the last one is EPA 2324. So last year when we did the same thing, and if you take a snapshot of this year, we did the same thing last year. We now have to go back and update this one for this current year. If you notice, this one says 2324, because now we know exactly what that dollar amount is. And now we have to correct whatever we estimated last year. Whatever what that estimate was, is now replaced by this 70,982. That is the amount that we're going to receive for this current fiscal year. That also requires board approval. And there's no resolution behind that because you passed that one last year for this.
So
So,
that covers line item E and F.
And we'll approve those by signing. Is that adequate or do?
you need to
Do a motion then.
motion
Yeah,
it,
so
yeah.
for E, then I'll move that we approve the education protection account specified for 2024-2025 year. And David second, and starting with Felipe from your end,
Yes.
and Molly,
Yes.
and Brett,
Aye.
and I'm a yes.
Yep.
Great, $98,000 coming out straight into the classroom.
Okay, so the next part is in order to apply for the Title 1, 2, 3 money. That we have to tie it into our LCAP. And so we are now required to fill out and complete the LCAP ESSA federal addendum template. And that's what this is. So I created the template, had Delano review it. Basically, I discussed what our strategy is behind using the money on the LCAP, the title money, and then the alignment, and then it goes over each of the Part A, Title I money. As you can see, let me go up to here. Up here, we are going to be asking for Title I Part A, Title II Part A, Title III Part A, and Title IV Part A. And that's what this document is all about. I just had to write a narrative on how we plan to use the money. And so in your leisure, I hope you had a time this past weekend to read all about this, but it's just a lot of alignment with our LCAP. Because everything has to be aligned nicely. And from this document, once it's approved, then later on, Delana will invite it back to then present to you the CONAP. That's consolidated application to receive this federal money. Okay?
So as you can see, lots of hoops to jump through. As I mentioned, sometimes the juice was certainly not worth the squeeze. And it still might not be, but we're gonna see how much we get out of this.
Yeah, it still might not be, frankly.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Evaluate it next
20,000.
year this time.
Yeah.
We'll look at you and go, how much work? was
We're
it?"
already in the hole because of your time spent having to write that.
I know, exactly.
There you go.
It's easier year two. Thoughts or questions for either Dr. Bean on the writing of that or the process and procedure from Delano's standpoint?
Thanks for going through this. That's a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot of always these, yeah, that report. Yes.
They don't make it
I'll
easy.
ask for a motion then to approve the LCAP federal addendum.
I'll motion so.
Thank you, Felipe, second. Molly, a second. We'll start on your side. Felipe with the vote,
Yes.
and Molly,
Yes.
and Brett. Aye. And Doug's yes, and yeah, okay, wonderful. We have that approved. Brings us to item H. The board will discuss and consider approval of the board calendar for the school year. And we've seen a prelim, and now it looks like it's finalized.
Yeah, the board calendar is on your agenda on the bottom here. You do want to have, based on Young Minnie's council, another general board meeting, correct? To discuss the executive. So you probably want to discuss a general board meeting. What, in the next week or two?
Yeah, but do we? We decide that based on this afternoon.
Well, that's true, but you might want to put it, that's a good point.
As a maybe, put it as a.
I think you might want to put it as a tentative.
Placeholder.
Yeah,
Yeah, what, is there a date, in the next, well, if we did next Tuesday, would we be prepared? We probably would, right, to discuss? Or will we need to do an interim before that? Will we put it out 2 weeks and do a
So
special?
we may need a special this week,
Okay,
like more than 24 hours.
does a special come first and then
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, regular,
okay,
because we needed the special, we need to authorize the board chair to
negotiate.
negotiate.
that's
Should that be needed?
that's right.
Mhm.
It was a special meeting, it has to be like an on-site meeting as well,
For quorum, but it won't be long. It's a single item. And so if we had 4 of us, we could do it. So if we put out, yeah, just 24 hours, so. Yeah, next is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So let's put out next, what if we did next Tuesday as our, we would call it a general. And on the agenda would be a couple of things. One might be the approval of board members and roles, extension of board members who would roll off. And then executive director, discussion on salary and we'll word that once with you a little bit better, what we say there. But then let's be flexible so that after today, we can all respond to a need for a special meeting, which the soonest we could do, would it be a Friday? Or would it be Thursday?
Special board meeting is 72 hours, an emergency.
Oh,
No. Regular is 72. Special is 24 hours.
and emergency. is an
Emergency is
hour.
like an hour. Yeah.
But that takes a natural disaster. We don't.
Right,
We
exactly.
feel that's what's coming.
It's not a natural disaster. I think
Thursday night.
Saturday, is that what you're saying? You could be available Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday would be.
Maybe your special board meeting this Saturday
Thursday night is not an option.
or in the evening.
Thursday night's not good for me.
Not good.
Not good for me.
Flexible Saturday too, so we'll shoot for that and do it.
So I don't think you want to mess up their evening. So maybe like Saturday morning, guys?
Yeah, that was thinking mid-morning.
Yeah.
just-
Saturday
morning's
morning.
Okay. Sorry.
Could impact my surfing
That's the-
capability.
What'd you say, surfing?
Yeah.
Well, surfing lessons. nice.
Go really.
Not missing much. Okay, so, then with the addition of a board meeting following Tuesday, which would be the 25th, is that right? Yeah, 25th, we'd have that. Then I'll motion we adopt the board calendar for the next school year. Doesn't really impact that, we're just forecasting it.
Yeah,
Ask for a second on the board calendar as it's stated there in item B of Roman Roy. David, a second, and we'll start on your side. David is a yes, Doug is a yes, Brett?
Right.
And Molly
Yes.
and Felipe.
Yes.
Beautiful, we have that. We skipped, we're near the close, but we skipped item 5 to move it down, which is executive director report and fiscal update. Looks like we got a pretty good fiscal update, but we may need to just look back at the prior month as it closed out, or two months ago. We're usually running about a month and a half. But we would love to hear an executive director report. All been
Okay.
So good.
let us close out the year and share with you our outcomes. So as you do the executive evaluation, actually, which would probably want to put that in the special meeting also, executive director evaluation. The metrics that you should use is how does the executive director do or perform in the role of that leadership in these 3 areas, right? Because we want to align with our LCAP, conditions, learning, student outcome, and engagement. So let's talk about that first goal of action implementing, or implementing goal 1 on the LCAP. Here's the data. Hire and retain highly qualified staff. So at the end of this year, we'll be retaining 86% of our staff going into next year. Intervention acceleration, we implemented 100% of the program, and it is always ongoing. Assessments and programs, same thing, 100%. Additional staff this past year, we hired Director of Student Services, Director of Business Operations. Let's give Mary Beth a big round of applause. We got the big promotion. And then a Director of HR. Notice that there are directors now. So it's Executive Director, then the directors report to the Executive Director. That becomes a central office support of campuses. Then the campus is led by the principal. And so we've hired a principal this year, or coming up here, and an AP. And so they will run the campus. Okay?
DSS is Joe.
Yes, DSS is Joe. All right, and then special education, we spoke with our SELPA LACO last week, and she was very happy with everything going on here in special education. Not any, well, you know, we had a couple of IEPs that were a little bit late in the meetings, only because of unforeseen circumstances by the parents. Not a big deal. But they said the compliance issue across the board, we're 100%, so we're good. They loved it. So that's a big round of applause to Joe over there. And by the way, in terms of due processes and litigation, that's where most schools suffer, is in the special education. So we've had no complaints, knock on wood. Thank you, Joe, and your time with us in 2 years. That's huge, huge. No complaints in special education. And Molly, as you know, in education, that's where a lot of the complaints happen, right? Special education. Expansion of middle school. Oh, it's amazing. The middle school team that we have, that's 100% successful. And now we're gonna have 8th grade next year. And our middle school is growing. It's amazing. Okay, ongoing, the library, you've seen it, great development, that's always ongoing. Our ELD program, this year we implemented 100% compliant. We're very proud of that, and I'll show you the results of implementing an ELD program. GATE, I have a 0%. This is something that we wanted to do this year, but competing priorities prevent us from implementing 100% GATE identification. So in the fall, Joe is committed to getting those students identified for gifted and talented. Okay?
We're
That's
working on the master plan for that.
Yep.
Working on it, so I'll share with you as soon as I'm done.
Can you identify what 3rd graders going into 4th? Is that the
Good
idea?
question, yes.
Yeah, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Okay.
For now, we have to do 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th because we missed the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders.
Oh.
But then after we test all them, then it'll be only 3rd grade. Communication, home to parents, stakeholders, Director of Student Services and Classroom Supports, 100% implementation. MTSS, which is our PBIS assembly, 100% implementation. These were already discussed in our evaluation of local indicators, so I don't need to talk more about that, but here's where I want to land. All right, chronic absenteeism last year was at 15.4. The middle of this year, it dropped to 12.4. At the end of this year, 8.46. And this was this guy's pet project here.
I even mentioned it in the gala, right? Because this is big for me.
This is huge. Look at this drop. That's a huge drop, right?
I mean, it's
That's
half,
Beautiful,
half.
almost.
And this is a nationwide problem.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
So what do we attribute to?
Should
Because I
be-
know we're doing certificates of it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
monthly perfect attendance.
Yeah.
A lot of communication to parents. Joe, this is part of Joe's work, his attendance. He had incentives all through April and May, which really helped this end of year number.
This tells me that the kids want to be here.
Yes.
This tells me the kids want to be here. They want to be here, right?
Yep, exactly. Mary Beth, is anybody having a hard time hearing us? Because we're not using a microphone. Okay, so that is great. Joe, that's, again, big celebration to Mr. Fernandez. Great job, Joe. Big celebrations to Angela Brown because she implemented our English language development program. Here's the results. We reclassified 15 English learners last year. This year, we reclassified 28 English learners. That's huge. That's very significant. And we have 133 English learners. So that's about 22% reclassification rate,
Which means now they're proficient enough not to be counted in.
which means now they're proficient enough not to be considered English learners. However, we follow them for the next 5 years as English learners.
Right.
Okay,
Great.
Brett. So that's your question. Last year, 3 suspensions. We dropped that down to 1. Next year, we're hoping that'll be 0. English Learner Progress Indicator. This is a number that comes from the California dashboard. 58.8% of our English learners made significant progress. We don't know that number yet. We'll know that number sometime in the fall.
Is there a gold standard?
Not really. I mean, this is actually one of the newer indicators. CAS. But this is just one of multiple measures on how we're doing in our English learner program, right? So let's look at CAS. 84% in math, 76% in science, 50% in, or 70% in ELA, 50% in science last year. We project with high 90% confident, with confidence, 85% will met or exceed in math. 92% will met or exceed in ELA. That's a jump of 16%. And look at science, 50 to 86. We're back, but we're now even higher than we were that first year.
So year one, we had actually done the table comparing different schools in
We're
Irvine.
number one in
But we-
science,
So I think, we're not doing that on an annual basis, right?
We're gonna do it this year. We just have to wait for the
Yeah, the
dashboard
final
to have.
score, but we
Yeah.
will have something, right? Because
Yep.
that's really a great thing to put on our site.
Yep, absolutely.
It's the best ad. Best advertisement, yeah.
And you have to consider this for a second. ELA 92%. And our English learners make up 33% of our population. So 33% do not speak English as their native language, which is high among any schools. And to still increase our English language arts from 76 to 92, wow, that's remarkable.
That means the other, what, 70% are working hard.
They're all working hard,
They're working very hard. to
Uh-huh.
get that up.
even our English learners. Yes, we got.
Yep.
So I'm sorry, that's 92% have met or exceeded. Think about that for a second. The national average is below, I'm sorry, the state average is below 50%. Half of the kids are failing in reading. Here, only 1 out of 10 is failing in reading. That's pretty amazing. All right, iReady shows exact same performance, right? 81 last year, 87 this year, 78 last year, 81 this year. So we've seen internal data show academic performance increase. And then Mandarin, we didn't have level learning last year, so we can't compare it, but we can look at the growth. Beginning of year, 12% met or exceeded, middle of the year, 27%, end of year, 40%. So we did see growth in Mandarin within the year, from beginning to end.
And this is with a much larger student body than last year.
Yes,
too.
yes,
Didn't get
exactly.
advantage of that first year.
Much larger student body.
250 versus 377.
Yes, exactly. So there's the enrollment. 250, 377, and then we're looking at 510 coming up in the fall. Now, this board needs to monitor very closely. We cannot go above 512, because that's what our charter is. We can't go above our charter limit. So 510 is where we, the
Firm
max.
cap.
Yeah,
So do we have a control on that?
the only control we have is we just have to do a material revision.
But I mean, through school minutes.
Oh, yes, of
you know,
course.
There's some control that won't allow us to do.
Yeah, right now we have 512 on the board. And it'll be less than that in that first week of school, because not everybody's gonna come. And then Mary Beth and Sai's team will make very close, precise decisions on who to allow in, because we can't be over that. Okay, so those are the amazing metrics across the board for this school. And this is a tribute to the amazing staff and teachers, group of teachers and leaders that we have. Right? It takes a village, not one individual. And so I'm looking at two amazing leaders right there. So great work overall. Share this proud and loudly and proudly. And that's all I have for the executive director's report.
It's enough.
Any question? Okay. Pretty cool, huh?
Fantastic.
Bring them out.
Oh, okay. Okay, hang on. So I got the question mark.
You wanna say,
Yeah.
wow, this is faster than your camera.
Gonna take a picture.
Yes.
All right. You guys.
Oh.
Very good, look, take it. Come in here, David. No, I shouldn't be part of, okay.
Yes.
No, this is perfect.
All right. So I know Orange County Department of Ed, I know you guys are watching, so Maureen, you should be very proud
Yeah, thank
of
you,
this school.
Maureen Hawks, and all the support from our authorizer.
Yeah,
Wow. And we feel like just policies are in place, everything. Great. What a report.
And that's this year, watch out next year.
watch out next year, baby.
Because we got the the administrative architecture there in place,
That's
with
right.
The principal and the AP and all those things, which that's all done without that, right? So what can we do with that?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to beat 92% ELA though. That's- Woo! Good news is most of those kids. And I want to say fifth grade, 100% of fifth and seventh grade, 100% of the students met or exceeded in fifth grade.
It's good.
Yeah,
It's an important grade.
and that's a very hard test. Very hard test.
Well,
Okay.
Fantastic. Delano, you want to anchor for us with our fiscal report? And that will be the last thing between us and a nap.
Word two.
That's
Go pull up the
right, you guys will be all asleep.
presentation for May.
Yeah.
And. Share screen. I'm going to have you or Joe, could you guys control this for
Yeah.
Honor real quick, and then wait back.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Page down.
Mhm.
Right, Control key.
There it is. But it doesn't page down in the true sense of paging down. It's more like it.
You can, if you maybe open with, I mean, it's a PDF reader, you can open it in PDF.
Yeah, I don't wanna mess up
Yeah.
whatever
then maybe
Dr.
you can't
D
share the
has.
Screen with that.
Yeah, I don't know what he has going on here, and the last thing I want to do be the guy that comes back and it's all screwed.
I'm pretty sure you can he just scroll with his hand on the board? Try scrolling around with that. Hold your finger down on it, now move.
No, it's just a reflect, and you know.
Oh, it's
but
not
so
there.
here.
Or no,
And this is from your computer.
Oh, well, I wasn't sure if you can do.
Yeah.
Because that's.
Yeah,
Maybe-
you know what?
maybe there's
I'm not the guy you guys want tearing up stuff around here, right? Yeah, it's revenues for the month of May, 568,000. You can see here, LCFF, always our biggest portion, federal revenues of 15,000. Other state, which usually comprises of special ed, mandate, lottery, etc., 66. Local contributions of 17,000. Our expenditures for May, and I did put a little summary sheet in there that I believe you guys may have had. I probably should just read off of that, which is kind of the same here. May expenses 424,000, which is great. We're spending less this month. You can see your salaries and benefits, 329, which is about 70% of that number there. And then Doug, as you mentioned, salaries and benefits are always the bigger portions of our expenses throughout the year. Books and supplies, 23,000, operational costs, 54,000. And again, our other outgo in terms of borrowing was about 13%, 17,000. Year-to-date revenues, and now, so we're turning this corner here, right? And so we're now getting into the home stretch, if you will. And you can see here, we're slowly building towards our completion of the year of 5.6 million in terms of our total budgeted revenues. We've collected 4.6 million. We have about 1 million left to go here. And you can see where most of that has stemmed from. Our revenue limit here, 3.3 million, we've received 180,000 in our local revenues, almost $1 million in our state. And then, as I mentioned, our federal dollars here, 171,000, which will be a lot less next year based on that budget that I just presented.
And you're gonna recognize the rest of the local revenue. probably in June.
Absolutely, yes. As soon as that touches down here, we'll go ahead and make that happen. So here we are with our budgeted expenditures, 3.2 million in salaries and benefits. Again, we're about 96% of that in terms of what we've spent for throughout the course of the year. 96% of that total number we budgeted for. 57,000 in books and supplies, operational 1.1 million. Now, other outgo here, which is our borrowing from Charter Schools Capital. As you can see here, we spent roughly 93% of our budget, which is about par for the year. We have roughly about 379,000 left for the month of June. Let's look at some prior year comparisons here in terms of revenues really quickly. And again, a nice turnaround from a year prior, last year this time. We were about 2 million in LCFF revenues. This year we were about 3.3 million. Again, federal is down because most of this was our Title IV or Title V PCSGP grant. State revenues are up, local is down, but again, that will switch over once we recognize the remainder of whatever is outstanding for the year. Here you can see the percent change overall in terms of our revenues from last May to this May, and the percentage there, all right? On the expenditure side, I think let's go back here just to see how much more we received this year versus last year. So we received about 1.5 million more last year, this year compared to the same period last year. Just want to point that out. And again, that's pretty obvious in terms of the increase in the student enrollment in ADA. But then we spent about 1 million more too on the same side, right? Salaries are up on both sides of that. Operational costs, but here's that difference there, right? Because last year we had just literally made our first borrowing April or May of last year, right? Which is reflected there. That's the reason why you see that way. And you can see the total where we were last year versus this year there. which is about $1 million more in expenses. Here's our budget through May. Through April, we were down 700,000. Before that, we were down 1 million. Before that, we were down 1.5 million. That the month before that, we were down 2 million. So now we're working our way back towards positive, as I mentioned. That's just how, in terms of timing of revenues coming in, now that we're almost done with all of our expenditures for the year. Right, this is when we'll then finally make that turnaround to recognize this 119,000 here that we're hoping will be our net income at the end of the year. Balance sheet wise. Excuse me, total assets. 464, last year we were 413. Liabilities, 1.8 million this year, last year 1.2. Major difference here being what you see here in terms of borrowing. Overall, we had more unearned revenue. This, we're gonna try to recognize quite a bit of this at the end of the year when we clean up the books. These are just, these revenues, when you see this unearned revenue, think of, we've received the cash for it, but we have not expensed because they're restricted, right? So there's some things that we will have to do to look at what we've already spent and then just point them in those directions, sort of use that layman's term. Last year, this time, we were a deficit 820. This year, we're 1.3. But our change in net assets is a whole lot different. We're only 564,000. This time last year, we were $1 million in the hole, right? Cash wise, this is where we struggle, but we can recover from this, right? And this will change, right? Roughly about 27 days of cash on hand, and you've seen that fluctuation month over month, right? With that, and this here are the reasons, right? Cash in treasury, 280. We had 146 last year there. Cash in the Cathay bank account, we had 224 last May. This year we had 140 at that point in time, but we have about $50,000 more than the same period last year, right? So it's roughly 27.5 days of cash on. Questions?
Where's the end of the fiscal year?
Next, the 30th of June. So we'll
Usually about 20 days after that, you'll kind of have the books closed.
about 2 months.
2 months. Okay,
Yeah,
'cause
yeah,
it's
yeah.
year-end, it's
Yeah,
year-end.
yes, year end, so there's a whole
surprised
lot,
to see
yeah,
everything
yeah,
that
yeah.
breaks up.
But in the normal course of things, to your point, yes. About 2 weeks after the month is over is usually when it takes me to close everything out. But for year end, it's a much longer process. So much more to do. And we just have to simply wait for information and things that we need to do it. And the audit, obviously, and all that will happen, so. But before that, we'll have some updates with that because we'll have at least 1 or 2 meetings well before that. Probably August is usually when I will have some idea of what the year end will look like. With a little bit of confidence if nothing has changed overall. So that's probably when you will see me next in terms of having things to bring and present for conversations.
So that unearned revenue, that's
Yes.
not recognized yet, right? It's not. recognized as
Absolutely
revenue.
correct,
So-
yes.
So that was at 124?
It was 440,000, 400,000. Let's go back up. $405. So these are all restricted resources here. This was last year. You see
Is
here.
that 250?
No, there's none of that. So these are just revenues that were restricted. So as an example, some of your art music grant, things like that. Some of the Hogue, not Hogue, the Hogue Foundation, things like that that have a certain restriction placed on it that can only go towards certain things. So we'll look through the GL if there are things that, because what helps with this is that if we have expenditures that we've already incurred and we can tag them to this, then that's great, right? But if not, then we'll just sort of roll it over. But I'll do my best to make sure. But I know some of those grants are highly restrictive because they were given to you with,
But they may not necessarily need to be, so.
that's at the
So we
board's
gotta get-
discretion.
I haven't emailed you yet on that.
Mhm.
With all things going on.
Yeah.
Maybe Doug, can Doug email you? Or just have.
Yeah, it'd be good to know what is the remaining amount.
I can provide that to
The
you.
Larry and Helen Hogue Foundation.
I can provide line item by line item for each
So
one of
that I
those.
know
resources.
Road grant.
Mhm.
So that we can
Yeah,
provide.
because
Because
that
you would
will
need to
help,
know
this
that,
will help tremendously.
you would need to know that by when, say,
Anytime between now, it doesn't have to be right away, but if you guys want to work through, or if you want to give me, some time to just kind of, I'll send you something or via through Dr. Bean.
Yeah.
What's remaining in which bucket for
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and then, and you can say, hey, the board can free it up,
Yeah.
because I don't have the authority to do that. Per our fiscal policy, you see, I can't do that, Wally, right?
You can send us an email. about how
Absolutely,
much,
yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. I'm glad you asked. Any other questions? We're good? All right.
Thank you, Delano.
Yeah, thank you.
Then,
Good luck tonight, man. I'll be watching. I'll be the first one that texts you too.
All right, thank you.
I'll entertain then on our agenda. If there's nothing else, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have just round robin, any comments or recommendations for our executive director, and then we'll go to our adjournment. But why don't we start? Why don't we start on my right with David? Any comments for our executive director or recommendations?
Well, I hope this, would be the last executive director report. But, that's a mixed feeling,
Yeah.
You understand, yeah. It's an extraordinary achievement. That's why, keep asking, how you compare to previous year, because we want to see, we clearly see everything step by step. We see improvement, everything organizational, organization wise, the hiring, student body, procedures, policies, most important, academic performance in every category. I see that clear. That's why I really, really feel very good about this, and I hope this will be the last. And not to, that normally we say it, we're gonna, yeah, but I hope we'll have a special board meeting very soon, all right? It's gonna be with a mix of feeling. Anyway,
Thank you.
yeah, very, very glad to see everything coming together under the leadership of Dr. Bean. And it's a great honor to work together with Dr. Bean. And I feel very good, very positive.
Thank you, Dave.
I like the same thing. It's great to finish a year in reflection like this and to see those reports. It's certainly gratifying to be a small part, but then to see your role and everybody else's. And so, yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Well, Molly, we'll come back to Brett in a moment.
I think it just, no matter where you can be, we are so fortunate, what a privilege to have to know you and see the result over here. And as an educator, I also want other schools will have a leader like you and help them to improve. And I think for IIA, I feel like after today, we're ready for next year. Can't wait to jump in, and so proud of the staff, the teachers, the teachers aid, everyone. I just feel like everybody pulled their heart into the student, into education, and I hope all educators, will experience this. Thank you.
Thank you. Felipe, Mendo, or Felipe, right? Yeah.
Oh, I vote, huh? So, yeah, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I'm voting for the other guy. Everything looks great, it's right down the path, but I want to remind everybody, one thing that I've learned, most of what I've learned about schools and the charter school, it's been while I'm here, right? I don't have experience outside, and I keep learning more and more. One of the things that's come to me, I hate to bring this up, it's kind of a bummer, but especially with the, I don't want to call them additions, but for the new executive director and things I've seen in the presentation by Delano, you know, we still have to be vigilant,
Yeah.
right? You know, we're all happy and everybody's glad about everything. That's the way things are going and everything looks great. But I see that charter schools are tough to run and open. And they can fall into pitfalls so easily. There's so many different things. And as a board, we have to stay vigilant no matter what. So that's what I'll be watching. So
There you go.
I'll be watching. I hope you all will too. We really have to be careful with that. So of course, everything looks great. Thank you for last year. I mean, and we're really looking to a great future for all of us, right?
Yep.
There you go, Mr. Your turn.
So. On behalf of IA, including the board, we want to thank you, Chairman Doug Houston, for years of dedication and service to this school. Before it was even, we were even in this building, right? When it was just a vision. And we're grateful to you for your leadership, your support, your camaraderie, your vision, your encouragement, your smile, your patience and understanding, as all of us have been going through this journey, but we're grateful to you. You take a huge, you make a huge part of this success of this school, and it's been very big shoes for any of us to fill. Okay, so we just want to thank you so much for your role and your support over these years.
Yes.
Why do we?
Your hand.
Well, this is all of us, really. So we all get it.
Yeah, all right.
There you go.
And I want to recognize Mary Beth for helping put this all together and making this possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. And to Dr. Bean, we don't want to forget about him.
Oh, what?
Yeah, the witching hour is upon us.
Yes.
We know it'll be a few hours. before-
It'll be late night, I think. It'll be late night.
Yeah. This is not your last board meeting,
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
we still got you for June. We already know we've got a couple things lined up. So
Yeah, yeah.
honestly, it's an ongoing thing. We can't thank you. I can't thank you enough for helping to lead here on site and what you've done. And may you continue to do all the many things that we know you're capable of doing for the county and beyond. So thank you.
We're gonna reserve that for, the good news, right?
That's right.
We're not gonna violate any, regulations by bringing a bottle of wine. Or
Remember.
champagne, doesn't matter.
That's why we do the backyard
Right,
meetings.
and that's why, backyard meeting or something.
Oh,
I just remember, I mean, there's a lot of great candidates and I'm happy either way. Whatever decision's made, I'm happy either way. So win-win.
What an honor even just to be considered.
Yeah.
And of course, we would love for even more students to have your influence. And so if that's what's ahead, then we'll cheer it on.
There's, before you close the meeting there, one more guy that we gotta thank for here, and that's Jim.
Mr. Joe.
Thank you. He's here.
Recognition that he
Yes.
deserves, because I'm here on campus a lot, as you guys know. Siemens worked very hard.
Oh, very hard.
Very hard, and that attendance, figure shows and everything, it all shows up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, guys.
Well, I'll finish just saying, the shoes are only 10 and a half. Anybody could. Well, entertained that a motion for adjournment.
I motion for adjournment.
I'll second it right away and we'll start with you. Motion to adjourn, Felipe,
Adjourn.
and Molly,
Yes.
and Brett.
Aye.
And Doug is yes, and David is a yes. And thank you again, Mary Beth, for hosting. Thank you, authorizers and public for participating as well. We'll end our recording at this point. Thank you, guys.
I'll share this support with you guys.
Okay, guys, I'm heading over there. So.
Oh, that's right.
Done.